It's great to have Dave Farina back on the program, a science communicator and author best known for his YouTube channel, Professor Dave Explains. Dave, it's great to have you on again.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So let's see how we can kind of enter this conversation. I've been appalled, but not necessarily completely surprised by the speed with which ideas that have no basis in fact that I can find become very popular among large swaths of the population. And you and I both recently watched Terrence Howard's appearance on Joe Rogan. And this is the appearance during which he talks about how the tone of some elements can be bisexual, which was not language I ever saw applied to the periodic table of elements. And one times one is two, and all these different things. And I saw it, it seemed crazy to me, to use a colloquial term. I showed the video to some mental health professionals. They all said, listen, we would probably medicate this if someone presented in my office talking in this way. It seems like something we have medical interventions we could try to do. And yet when I covered it, I got dozens of emails and there were hundreds of comments from people saying, David, this guy's brilliant. You just don't understand him. It's so on and so forth. Generally, what's your view about the way in which some of these ideas, for lack of a better term, are spreading and people get entranced and enamored with it?
I mean, it's hard to approach this one because you got to understand. I'm no stranger to reality denial. I deal with flat earthers. I deal with people who are in complete denial of uh, so many things that are well understood. But I always thought that we could all agree, even flat earthers, on basic arithmetic. Two plus two equals four and things like that. So with the Terry episode, I like you, I just thought, okay, we're all kind of having a laugh about this. And I was shocked when I put out a reaction video to that interview, how many thousands of people, because that video went a little bit more viral than most of my content does, and the level of vitriol and accusations of racism, you don't understand what he's saying. It's like the guy can't do second grade math. Like, can we at least all agree on basic math, please? So I really don't know. Like, I feel like reality denial is just getting worse and worse over time. It's hard to know where to go from here, honestly.
How do you, what approach is there? I don't know if this would be if you were talking to Terrence Howard or if you were talking to one of the people that thinks the stuff he was saying is brilliant. You can interpret it either way. What sorts of approaches would you suggest in attempting to reason with such claims if one wanted to? Because, with a lot of political beliefs, I will use like a Socratic method of questioning. Oh, the zero tax rate would be the best. And I'd say, okay, how'd you come up with that idea? Where'd you get that? What examples do we have of what happens when you have a zero tax rate? And sometimes that method can make some kind of progress. But when you apply, like, the one times one equals two thing seems like applying linguistic analysis to math. And it's sort of like, I can very clearly say, no, what you have, one times one means one instance of one thing. If I have one instance of one banana, that's one. That's how one times one equals one.
Right.
How do you even try to reason with some of this stuff?
I mean, just using those kinds of examples, like it's very different from political beliefs and things like that, where even if you disagree strongly, you can at least attempt some kind of a good faith conversation, see if you can find middle ground. There is no middle ground on arithmetic. One times one equals one. If you do not agree with that, you're wrong. So for me, the challenge, I'm not really the best with the sociological aspect. What my skill set lies in is more just breaking these concepts down in ways that are absolutely undeniable. So with arithmetic, in my video, I just went back and explained basic arithmetic and what the operation of multiplication is in the sense of repeated addition, and showed pictures and examples. And, it's a little embarrassing to have to do that, but I do that. And then the same thing with the periodic table, saying things are frequencies and this and that, and hydrogen is only the first element that we can perceive, and that there's ones before that. It's like, no, hydrogen is the first element because it has one proton. One proton, two proton, three, right? Things that everyone was supposed to learn in 10th grade chemistry. So that's really just my approach, is just laying all the facts out in a way that is as simple and succinct as possible, and just hope that people watch it. And obviously many of them don't. And so there's that, but what can you do?
There's there's this other guy, Billy Carson,
Hmm.
who was just before our interview, I was watching him on the Patrick Bet David podcast on which I've appeared, and then he was with Rogan. And if I understand correctly, and a lot of this is the followers of these folks will then write in and go, "You're just not understanding what he's really saying." It's like, okay, if I understand correctly, he has beliefs about ancient civilizations that involve gold mining and the Anunnaki, and he thinks there was someone named Thoth, or I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. This stuff, he's able to name check MIT and Harvard. I don't know exactly what he got there, some kind of certificate. I don't even really
They're
know.
just online courses that anybody can take. He's just,
Okay.
it doesn't mean anything. Yeah.
Okay,
He has
good. So
no
it's
degrees of any kind. He's not a scholar of anything.
that's good information. So what do you think is going on here with why this stuff is so appealing? And one thing I notice is the more specific these guys can be, it's often guys, although not always, the more appealing it seems to be. There was this guy, Riley Martin, who used to appear on the Howard Stern show, which, by the way, I found to be one of the most entertaining people ever to talk to Howard, who was super specific about when he was abducted by aliens and the types of aliens and the Targishians and how they use different technology. It's riveting in its specificity, but sometimes the specificity seems to also be what lulls people into thinking this must be true.
Sure. Yeah, and in
It,
fact, it's not a new script. He's regurgitating these similar kinds of ancient alien scripts that other people have been doing it. I mean, if I'm being honest, he's sort of repackaging it for like an urban audience, you know what I mean? He's kind of capturing that demographic and mixing it with like his style of success porn and how to be a millionaire and all of these things. It's in my video on him, I said it's Gaia meets Andrew Tate in sort of a way. But
so
no,
what are the red flags? In other words, articulate and charismatic often is the case with a lot of these folks. Super specific stories where some people would go, they couldn't possibly be making it up because it's so specific. Give us some of the red flags that you can find between the lines of that charisma and specificity.
I mean, the main one would be technobabble. I mean, they just spew out jargon that they know that the majority of their viewers have no idea what they're saying. But if they
Mm.
use enough technical terminology, they'll confidently, people will think that they know what they're saying. They're absolutely not. I mean, with the Billy Carson one, he's spewing all this stuff about, fusion in the pyramids, and then this just like he's using scientific terminology that doesn't go together and is absolutely, electrolysis and all these things. It's just he has absolutely no idea what he's saying. He just says it very confidently. That's all
And
there
it
is to it.
seems that that's a big difference with actual academics and scientists who seem to often use language like, based on what we've been able to get our hands on so far, here's our best assessment. And they sort of
Mhm.
seem to leave room for the fact that we may revise our conclusions as evidence changes. That humility sometimes is missing from these guys.
Yeah, well, they'll also take advantage of that humility and project greater certainty, of course, regarding utter falsehoods, right? It's a script of lies. But yeah, I think some people love a confident fraud more than a humble scientist or truth teller. It can be very intoxicating, I think. But in the end, these are stories that people want to be true. They want these stories about aliens coming down and genetically engineering us to mine gold for them. Why would that be the case? It's kind of rare here. I don't know if people were aware they could go mine asteroids instead and get them.
Mm.
But they're fun stories. Like I love the movie Stargate. It's a fun movie,
Yeah.
right? But it's a movie, right? And I don't know, just this penchant for fantasy mixed with I've said this before, and probably to you as well, just this increasing anti-establishment bias, people that just are so desperate for any kind of prevailing wisdom to be false, whether I don't know where that stems from exactly, yeah, disillusionment with authority, or just, wanting to feel smarter than people who actually study things. I don't know what it is, but that's sort of behind most of the science denial that you see today, is this anti-establishment bias.
What's your sense of the degree to which Rogan does an acceptable job of handling these sorts of guests? Like, I've spoken to my audience about how when I interview an extremist or kind of wacky guest who I know is going to make either really disgusting claims about people based on race or sexual orientation, or is going to tout conspiracies about the election, like that guy Mike Pillow, Mike Lindell, as some people know him. I try to be prepared so that I can put up a wall or create an environment in which their views will be exposed as out of the mainstream, indefensible, or whatever the case may be. Rogan's gist historically is sort of like he's curious and wants to hear from people, which is fine. But when there's this sort of nonsense, I start to question the responsibility of it. Like, how do you assess Rogan's relationship to these guests?
It's tough because in the past I had somewhat defended Rogan. I'm not an avid Rogan viewer. Obviously, I know of the show, and I had seen clips of him pushing back on various guests to the best of his ability. It's totally fine that he's not particularly educated in any field, and it's totally fine that he wants to have conversations because he's curious. And also in the past, I had seen kind of more balance on the roster, having different kinds of people. So yes, you got one fringe right-wing lunatic, but then you have this scientist come on, and then he explains things. So I was like, okay, I kind of, to an extent, had defended Joe in the past because we don't really have anything these days. We have so many echo chambers, and there's no like Dick Cavett show where everybody comes on and talk. So I was like, okay, Rogan is fine, but just the way that his roster is skewed lately, and just so many, it's just disproportionately filled with these blatant charlatans. Billy Carson is a grifter and a charlatan. Terrence Howard is. It's a little more defensible because I think he is actually genuinely extremely mentally ill. But everything he's saying, I mean, it's like, not only is there no pushback, and I had comments telling me in my video, no, Joe's just, coaxing the crazy out of him because he knows it's good content. No, in the Billy Carson interview, he goes, how is Terry so smart? He's brilliant, talking about the theory that stars poop out planets. I mean, literally, he said defecate. He said they defecate planet. It's like, dude, learn literally anything about astronomy here. It's very damaging to society because not only does he give them the platform to run their grift, but with his credulity, it sort of amplifies the grift that they're spreading, and his viewership is so enormous that it does actual quantitative, calculable harm to the social discourse. It really does, and I would relish the opportunity to tell Joe this to his face, but because I don't hate the guy, and I think he's a good dude. But just, man, he needs a better bullshit detector and just a little, a little bit more selectivity in who he brings on his platform. He needs more responsibility in that regard, I think.
You sort of started to talk about this a little bit. I was going to ask you what your opinion is as to, with these different characters, do they believe the stuff they say, or is it something that they're doing because they think they can convince other people to follow them or for monetary reasons or whatever? You sort of alluded to Billy Carson probably knows the stuff's not true. Terrence seems to have some issues where maybe he does believe it. I was also going to bring up Tucker Carlson, who recently went on and confidently said that scientists have abandoned the theory of Darwinian evolution. My reaction to that was, I'm pretty sure Tucker does know 100% that that's not true, but it's just he's increasingly trying to appeal to a certain audience. How do you assess their belief of this stuff?
I mean, you have a track record of everything they've ever said, especially Tucker as a pundit. I mean, pundits, I feel, are notoriously pandering to a base. And as Tucker got pushed out of, the major media outlets and is just desperately searching for an audience, I think he's going to say whatever he needs to say to, it's like, it's the same thing Russell Brand is doing. He's just gotten completely insane and is now like, what do I need to say to get millions of people to follow me? Okay, then that's what I say. I'll start a cult if I have to. So Tucker is like that. I mean, he's just absolutely shameless in what he says. Billy is just a run-of-the-mill snake oil salesman and grifter. Terry is insane, but he's also a liar. I mean, he goes on there and confidently says, I have 97 patents for all. He doesn't have patents. Like, what? He's just lying. Like, he's just lying.
You think he knows he doesn't have the patent? Like, in other words, some of this stuff might be mental illness, but with the patents, you think he just knows he doesn't really have any patents?
I mean, I'm not an expert on mental illness, so maybe he's somewhere in the recesses of his mind, he's convinced himself he does. I don't know. I'll leave that to a mental health professional, but he is definitely obviously not just saying things that are scientific nonsense, but flat out lies. So I don't really care. I want everyone to know what's right and what's wrong, and the rest can be sorted out by society. But yeah, that's my job here. So
We've been speaking with Dave Farina. Please check out the YouTube channel, Professor Dave Explains, filled with great, meaty content. Dave, always great talking to you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks very much for having me.